I mean, my character, I think, is setting off to change the world, to make the world a better place. And he's doing so somewhat naively, believing that technology is going to lead the way. You know, very similar to how a CEO in the Valley or here even in Toronto might talk about their new startup, like we're going to change lives, change the world, and we're going to do it with developers and code and like new technology and innovation. And you know the way Steve Jobs might have spoken ultimately. But he's sort of following that lead. Those are his role models. And he believes, you know, that he's not that good actually. He's not a great developer. He's just good enough to impress people, but you know, like his stuff always looks a little dated as well, a little behind the times. And ultimately, he, you know, even though he's trying to do the right thing, he does the wrong thing because he's relatively naive and ignorant of context and all of the sort of the social fabric that he's entering into on, you know, in every occasion. He's usually trying to fix like a big problem, like, you know, it might be something like, I want to fix like I want to be more of a feminist. That's the like famous meters. I want to fix, you know, masculine sort of culture that's objectifying women, and he'll just make up some stupid invention that doesn't really satisfy our problem. But you see that all the time, I think, in reality. So that's the underlying critique is like, you know, it kind of comes off as a bit of a troll because you see this type of demo or this type of attitude in the world today, and so you know, sometimes people believe it, which I always find quite amusing, even though it's so over the top. I'm not like the Yes Men. I don't know if you know the Yes Men, but like they're definitely trying to pull off like a fake WTO. Like, can you believe the WTO did that? I'm literally like being as ridiculous as I can. People are still like, good idea. That would be a great way of addressing racism.
That brings me to something that I was thinking about. I was just watching your the video you made for the Web We Want, and it seems like this is a good example of what you're talking about. You seem to be really good at setting up this opposition between this wonderful and naive approach to technology with this unawareness of context and content. In the Web We Want video, you're demonstrating this wonderful new technology, and all we can do is look at your naked chest. Can you talk a little bit more about how you treat that contrast, treat that?
Yeah. I mean, so. I guess so. Background story is I have, you know, a background sort of in sociology and like self-deprecation, I guess is like, and you know, so I'm very aware of where I fit in, and I've always been very self-aware, I guess, that way. And so all of my work, you know, I try and address, I think, issues that I'm personally struggling with, you know. So I often haven't fully reconciled with myself. Actually, like in that case, I was responding, like I think I said to you earlier, to the iCloud hacks, and you know that these celebrities' lives, you know, female celebrities' lives have been sort of like completely uprooted just so that like a bunch of men could get a look at their chests, and it was just seemed like so wrong that people were like downloading torrents and calling it the fappening. It was like a kind of a disgusting moment in civilization, and I thought I pitched like, well, what, you know, in my head I often like perform the act of being an artist, like figuring it out as my character, right? Like how would he solve this problem? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, what I could do is like objectify men, you know. What would be like a really naive way of objectifying men? Well, give them breasts, but make the breasts like technological and useful. And so that's sort of what emerged in that work. And it became, comedy's like a great backdoor. So that's kind of awkward in this context. Wrong choice of words, but it is a great like sort of backdoor into it. It's like it makes difficult topics more approachable, I think. And even if you didn't get the iCloud thing, that's not important to me. That was just sort of the jumping off point. It would just be generally about, you know, our bodies and the way we think about them and the trajectory we're on, where, you know, we think less and less of them as people and more of them as, you know, objects. And that's certainly the way, you know, companies think about them, and we've got wearable technology. There's like many layers that I'm thinking through. But you know, being comedic about it makes it approachable, makes it kind of entertaining, and these issues are quite complex. So I don't know. I'm very satisfied when I can get them to this point where it's like, oh, a one-liner. Because like that's the most satisfying moment. Like a modernist might be like, the essential thing is a circle or triangle. I'm like, the essential thing is a punchline. It includes a TV bra or whatever. So that's anyway, and that's also kind of an homage to one of my heroes, such as Nam June Paik. And he did like this TV bra in the 1980s, actually. Very similar, and he was a very similar kind of artist. He used sort of absurdism and technology to sort of talk about the place technology had in our culture, which is like a huge place. It's like more of a place now than it was then even. It's like it is culture, which I find really kind of strange. You know, if you think of different eras, you know, it wasn't like in the 1930s it wasn't like technology culture. Though actually that's a great, 1930s was kind of technology driven time, but other times have been about music or you know, theater or whatever, or film. This is definitely like, it seems like pop culture is in my pocket, is my phone kind of thing.